Ooh, I've got recording in progress.
Hello.
Hello, I just have to press OK and then we can go. All right, there we go.
Perfect. Hello and welcome to the Art of Healthy Retirement. My name is Nancy Schwartz, and I'm so excited that you are here to bear witness to an extraordinary guest that I have today. And Michael and I have known each other for several months, and I just think he brings an extraordinary perspective that we haven't had in our Art of Healthy Retirement. And our podcast goal is twofold. One, to support business experts who are transforming from a career into healthy retirement, or those business experts who have retired. And the format is a Zoom, and it's posted on my YouTube channel, Nancy Schwartz. And what I love about the podcast is that it focuses on how our guests are living, or in Michael's case, will be living their ideal retirement. And no interview is the same. And that's the joy of the discussion, because we are disrupting the way you think about healthy retirement in real time. Each podcast is educational in content and offers inspiration to others by showcasing our guests living life on their own terms. So I would like to introduce you to Michael Millward, who is a 40-year corporate executive in HR, and he has worked across the globe from Europe to the Middle East, Africa, North America, Australia, and Asia. And while in Asia, he was recognized by the Hong Kong Management Association as one of the best HR executives. He's an innovator, and he's responsible for one of the first-line corporate universities, and also using voice networks for interactive training. He is experienced across large global multinationals, as well as through early stage startups. Michael has a master's in human resource management from the University of Wales and is a chartered fellow of the United Kingdom Chartered Institute of Personnel and Development. Michael is the founder and managing director of Abeceder, and it is a UK distributor of Safe Start, which is a range of safety briefing materials that include support materials that feature the characters from some of the hit shows, such as The Simpsons. Michael brings quite an amazing HR perspective, and I really want to focus this around Michael's expertise. So Michael, welcome to the program. I'm absolutely thrilled that you were able to make it across the pond today.
Thank you very much. It's nice to hear somebody describing me and thinking like, do they mean me? Do they mean me?
Yes, we do.
Thank you very
Yes.
much. Thank you. It's very
Yes,
kind of you.
we do. And Michael, because of your incredible scale and scope, and I can't believe it's early stages of 2024, but here we are. What are you seeing in terms of not only your company, but other companies that you are servicing in terms of the trends of HR going forward into this year? And particularly because the year-end story from 2023 was really all around AI and how AI could be really, I think, supporting HR going forward. But I'd love to hear your opinion.
Okay. How long have you got? Is one of the
A
questions.
while.
Let's break it down into various different sort of areas. Excuse me. Let's break it down into sort of manageable chunks, I suppose. You mentioned AI, artificial intelligence, and I suppose I can make the comparison between artificial intelligence and e-learning. When e-learning came along, e-learning was supposed to be the be-all and end-all. We would never sit in a classroom again. Everything that we needed to learn, we'd go onto a computer and we would find it, and instantly. We still go into classrooms. We still sit down with other human beings to learn things. We still sit and listen and interact with someone who is a trainer or a teacher, a lecturer, to learn things. And I think that whilst at the moment we have a lot of excitement about AI, we will find the same sort of situation occurring. It's to be a lot of excitement, a lot of learning. How do we use this? How should we use it? How shouldn't we use it is one of the big lessons that we'll need to learn. At the moment, there are people who say, well, it will take over all sorts of different things. You'll be able to communicate with people and do all sorts of magical things. That's fantastic. You'll be able to write letters instantly with it. That's fantastic. Yeah. But, you know, my professional function is sometimes called personnel, and sometimes it's called human resources. The first one of those, personnel, includes the word person. And the second one includes the word human. And a key part of the role of HR is that personal, person to person, human interaction. And I've spoken to recruiters who can tell me that, yeah, we've got a CV that's come in an application. We can tell it's been written to one of the formats of one of the big career counseling companies. You can tell this person is a client of this career counseling company. Yep. And you can tell when a CV, an application has been created using AI as well. You know, if the computer is capable of doing more, then what we as human beings need to do is focus on the development of relationships and the development of individuality. What is our uniqueness? What is the value that we add as a human being to this situation, to this challenge, to this organization? What is it that we are bringing that a computer can't do? And how are we going to add value? What's my unique selling point as an individual? Because no matter how complex the computer is, it's not as complex as what's in our heads, right? And I think, yeah, it will be a great tool if we use it, if we learn how to use it correctly for benefits, but will never replace, from an HR person's perspective, the need for that interaction between between people. You know, if I phone up an organization or if I try and make contact with a customer services function and they try and put me into one of those AI automated, I want to talk to a human being. Let me talk to a human being, please, and we'll get the problem solved instantly. Because you have to, if you've got AI, you have to ask the question that the AI understands in the way that AI understands it. We can have a conversation using multiple aspects of language, and you will understand from the tone, from the speed, what I'm actually thinking when I ask a question. So yeah, a useful tool, but it's never ever going to replace this type of situation.
Yeah, no, I think that many of the orgs on this side of the pond are really trying to focus and get clarity around exactly what you're talking about in terms of what will that organization, what's the service that AI in a positive way will generate for the company. So thank you, Michael, for framing that. I love that. Let's flip this on its head and let's talk about what's going on. And I'm certainly sure, and you'll tell us in terms of the landscape of Europe where you're sitting today, but we're looking at some pretty significant downsizing here, tail end of 2023, and certainly into the beginning of January here. And we look at large established companies like Blackstone and Citibank and many others that I'm not mentioning, who have had huge global downsizing for a variety of different reasons. Could be that there's a change of industry awareness, and that really was Blackstone. It could be for Citibank that they said, while their divisions were performing, but they're not performing how they want them to be performing. So that's another 20,000 people that are really around the world just cut. And so from my conversations here in this seat, on this side, when listening to business experts, they are really feeling the sting of ageism. And I'm here to tell you that it is alive and well from my point of view. And I'm curious, from your tremendous expertise in HR, that, how do we reframe? We know culturally that in the United States, very much we think about ageism, but if we look at other cultures, such as in Asia and many other cultures, the fact that we have a lot of decades under our belt is really revered. And so how do we change the appetite or the attitude of employers to really value those extraordinary experiences in those, as you suggest,
Mhm.
who could provide the company with extraordinary value in leadership versus, oh, they're over 50.
Over 50. Oh, 50 is the new 40 type of thing,
Yes.
isn't it? Really. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I think there's been the downsizing of employers, the number of people that companies employ, has been a trend which has been going on for quite a while. There was a
Mm-hmm.
period where lots of technology companies, lots of organizations that feed off industries that feed off technology were hiring and hiring large numbers of people. It was almost I've got more employees than you type of thing.
Well, it
Um,
was overhiring, and then several of
yes,
those companies have suggested that we've overhired, therefore we have to
yes,
make a course correction.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
And technology has advanced as well. So,
Mm-hmm.
we were talking a couple of seconds ago about AI. Well, if the AI is going to do something, you don't need a person to do that.
Yeah.
So, it's the work that the people do has to be work of higher value. The work that people do has to require them to be better skilled, more experienced, more capable of making decisions in wide-ranging situations. Now, AI may be one of the big trends for 2024. Okay. But at the same time, one of the other trends that is happening within multiple industries, is that instead of recruiting, more employers are beginning to focus on developing and taking, okay, we have the right number of people, but what we need to be doing is saying, okay, let's get involved in more of the planning process of that person's career. We've invested in that person. We've developed
Mm-hmm.
them from being a graduate to being someone who's now capable of training another graduate. We've expanded the range of skills that they've got, the experience. We've moved them from different parts of the organization, perhaps different parts of the world. We're building their experience. What that means then is that an experience, we could also say to them, well, go off for a couple of years and do something else and then come back. It could be voluntary work. It could be working in the voluntary sector. It could be a different type of organization. Move from a big conglomerate to a startup, whatever it is. But what we're
Mm-hmm.
seeing increasingly is more organizations saying it would be easy to go out and recruit. But what we need to do is focus much more on the development of our existing people. That means that we are going to keep hold of those people. And development of our people means that we need to start thinking much more about succession plans. Not a word
Mm-hmm.
I used to hear very often from
Yeah.
clients, but since a
Yeah.
particular television series has been on, succession has
Yes.
been one of
And
those big issues.
they've won some Emmys yesterday. Yes, they
Yes,
did.
yes, congratulations.
Yeah.
But succession has become more important. So where is my replacement? Where I'm a senior manager, where is my replacement coming from? We could go out and recruit them, but we'll actually we'll recruit internally. We'll develop people, and we're seeing much, much more of that. And the key things that you need in terms of if you're going to have a development program, the key things that you need is the people with the experience to develop other people.
Mhm.
So an older person who's great at their job can then also add value to the organization by being the person who's capable and willing and able to help develop other people coming up through the ranks to then be their replacement. We don't have to worry, I think, so much about our age as such. It is one of those, like, I mean, you know, let's get a little bit contentious for a moment. Okay. He said, I'll sit back, fold my arms, let's get contentious and cause a problem. But the election campaign in the United States is just kicking off, starting the Iowa caucuses.
Iowa, yes.
Iowa, right. Um, my understanding is that the two main characters who are leading the race, so to speak, at the moment, are both men in their 70s. Is that right? Right.
Well, and one a little bit much more than that, another decade more. Yes.
Right. So you're prepared to vote for someone who's an older person to run one of the biggest organizations in the world, the United States. So what's the problem then with having somebody who's in their 50s or their 60s working in your organization? It doesn't add up to me. It's like, I spent most of my life as a subject of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth, the late Queen Elizabeth, now a subject of King Charles III. But she came to the throne in 1952.
Mhm.
But, at the time, it was perfectly legal to pay a woman less money than a man. It was perfectly legal to say that that woman couldn't be promoted into a more senior management role. But our head of state was a woman. It
Mm.
doesn't add up to me. It's like if one person can do that job, then it doesn't matter about their age, it doesn't matter about their gender, it doesn't matter about their religion or anything. It's like you look for the best person to do the job. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter if someone is as somebody who helps organizations with recruitment, not as a recruitment consultant, but getting the process right. I am always thinking, like, where is the best person for this job?
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter. And I think more and more employers are starting to think it doesn't matter how old someone is or what gender they are, where they come from in the world. So we've got that. We've also, like in the United Kingdom, we've gone through Brexit. Before Brexit,
Mhm.
we were able to recruit people from all over Europe very easily. It's not quite as easy anymore because people need different types of paperwork.
Mhm.
So again, we are driven much more to look at what we've got internally, the people that we've got in our organization already. Right? What can we do to move those people forward, to develop them? How do we do that? We're also seeing more organizations saying, well, we used to have a graduate training program with people who've been to college, university, and now we've got a training program for people who are leaving school, 16, 18, becoming
Mm.
apprenticeships or apprentices, and how we're developing those. And we're removing the barriers that say, well, you joined us as a graduate, so your career could go this route. You didn't join as a graduate, so your career will be limited. Now we're becoming much more of meritocracy, and it's what you deliver, what you offer to the organization, how you would do that. It's not just I achieved all of these results. Well, you might have achieved all those results, but you're doing it by yourself because nobody wants to work for you or with you. So we have to look at things in much more in the round and say that's a person who's great at their job. They're a great leader. You don't need to be in a management position to be a leader. Anyone can be a leader. So it's an activity, not a job title. They're helping develop other people. They're building the organization. We can see the contribution that they're making. They're not having to shout about it, but if they're asked, they will say, this is the contribution that I made. They understand their value to the organization, and we understand them as well. So there's much more collaboration between employers and employees around the value that people will add to organizations and a greater understanding of how, as individual employees, we build an understanding of the contribution that we have made with our managers and also our potential. What is it that we could do that we haven't been given the opportunity to do yet?
Yeah, no, thank you, Michael. I love that well-rounded approach. And from
Hmm.
my point of view, I think that, leadership development, as we call it here in the US, has been part of the benefit package for
Hmm.
high performers. And typically, when companies are struggling or there's a budget cut, that program goes away, except for like a succession candidate of some sort, and that's at the C-suite. And so I love the fact that and this was when I first started my career. There was a lot of leadership development, and then we went through some decades that were challenging. And I love the fact that you're seeing that the leadership development is coming back into play in terms of really developing from a very, very young employee, the possibility for endless potential. And that I love. And then you're continuing that track right up into the C-suite. And
Hmm.
so everybody, there's no such thing as you're perfect. There's no such thing. If you're at the C-suite, if you're at the boards, or if you're the first person in the morning making the coffee, everybody needs leadership development. And I love that that you're seeing that come back again, because I think it's so important to the growth and the development of the companies per se, of seeing what's possible out there in 2024.
Yeah. Let me tell you about a client called Stuart Bolton. And he was a guest on one of my podcasts, as you were. He runs a company in the UK which makes doormats. It makes traditional doormats, so the
Mm,
ones in all sorts of different ways, sizes, all this sort of stuff. But he makes doormats as a company. He also takes the school holidays off so he can spend time with his children. And the way in which he manages his organization is designed around him being able to do that. He cannot do that unless
mhm,
he, as the leader of the organization, puts in place processes and training and development opportunities to enable him to leave the organization for 6 weeks every summer, confident that the
mm.
people running
Yes.
that business are going to make the sorts of decisions that he would make.
Mhm,
Right? So whatever happens, they understand his values, they understand the processes for the business, they understand the questions that he would ask in any type of situation, and the sorts of information that he wants to collect before making a decision. He understands all of that. Now, one of the things he says is that when he comes back in the autumn and so what's been happening, he never criticizes the people for the decisions that they've made. He never blames them for a decision that they made which didn't work out. Because one of the things that he said in the podcast was that I have no way of knowing whether, given the information that they had at that
mm.
time, right, with all the different situations that were going on, whether I would have made the same decision or not. So we're not going to attribute blame. We're just going to say what happened, what went well, what didn't go so well, what have we learnt, what will we do next time? Because he's also going to take 3 weeks off at Christmas because the
Oh
school
boy.
holidays. But the way in which he chose to run his business was in a way that enabled other people to develop and to do things that they didn't think they would ever be capable, be given the opportunity to do. He fulfills almost. I often say, okay, it's great to have objectives, and the normal way in which we define an objective is using that acronym SMART.
Hmm.
That includes achievable and realistic. Well, I
Hmm.
take those away from some objectives. And I say you replace those with a U. And the U stands for unbelievable. Because for some objectives, not every objective, but for some objectives, you want the person to leave work at the end of the day or the week or when the objective has been completed successfully and be able to say, I would never have believed that I was capable of doing that.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, it is unbelievable that I have done that, but I
And
did it.
right.
Yeah.
And he's empowering his employees by doing that.
Yes.
And he's not threatened by them. In fact, it's quite the other way, right? The other side
Oh,
of the
yeah.
shoe, that he's really
Yes.
empowering them to lead his company,
Yes.
and also that it's the organization is alive and breathing because they're constantly learning together, whether
Yes.
or not he's there or not. So that's a
Hmm.
beautiful
Yeah.
example
But
of true leadership.
yeah, isn't that one of the problems, though, that people who are getting older have to address within themselves sometimes? Is that they don't, how to say this with being polite? There isn't a polite way to say it. There isn't. But isn't it true that when some people get older, they get a little bit stuck in the mud? And it's like, it's my way or there's no way. It's, um, this is the way that I do it. This is the way we've always done it. Why should we change? I don't see the reason for change. And if you're an employer who's faced with all of the different challenges of running a business, whether it's a large business or a small business, and you need people who can move quickly, right?
Hmm.
You know, you need people who are going to say, yes, tell me about the situation. Tell me about the problems. Tell me about the challenges. Yeah, I want to know about this. Right. Now I can tell you what I can do to contribute to the solution, which is going to get us through this problem. Leave it to me. I've been around for a while. I know what can work, what can't work. I know I've got a team of people who will buy into this. Whereas too often we find older people who are very often in very senior positions, very often in positions of seniority which aren't hierarchical, but
Hmm.
they're respected, they're valued. They're the people who can influence how a team operates without having the power to tell the team to operate. They just, the way in which they behave influences younger people. And if they don't buy into it, or if they buy into it when the boss is there, but not when the boss isn't there, I've seen this
Hmm.
happen a lot.
Hmm.
It brings the whole team down. And what you really need is sometimes someone who's got that experience of having gone through this before. You know, you
Hmm.
say organizations are downsizing. Well, when weren't they downsizing? You know, at some point or another, you know, I do work in schools, voluntary work in schools where we go in and we conduct mock interviews for 16, 17-year-olds. And, you know, said to, they tell us the job that they want, the career that they want, and we gear the interview to the type of interview they're likely to have in that industry. So one young chap said he wanted to work in a big telecommunications organization. So, you know, I've got some experience in that. So we uh, we geared an interview around what we would do in that situation. Came to the point where we said to him, "So why do you want to work for us?" And he said, "I've never known a time where my parents, either of my parents, have had what I would call secure employment. They've worked in small businesses, medium-sized businesses. They've been made redundant, I don't know how many times.
Hmm.
Usually around my birthday, so I don't get very much of a birthday present. I want to work in a big organization so where the work is going to be more secure, where the training opportunities will be there." Right? And you think like, that's a great answer for a young person who's still in his teens to give to an employer about why they want to work in an organization. Now, once we've got a job, we've got the job, right? We don't actually go back and sit down and say, okay, knowing what I know now, would I reapply for my job, right? Knowing what my employer knows about me now, would they employ me,
Hmm.
right? And it's like, that's a conversation that many of us need to have with our managers. You know, knowing what you know about me now, would you give me this job?
Hmm.
Why wouldn't you give me this job? What are the things that annoy you about, or that are annoying about me? What are the things that are positive? What do I need to develop on? Where do I need to add more value? Where do I need to add value to me as an
Hmm.
individual? You know, we're talking about development of people. You
Hmm.
have great employees. I'm a big believer that on the day somebody starts work with a new organization, they are so excited to be there. They're really nervous as well, but they're so excited to be there. And as a manager in an organization, you're really pleased and excited that this ideal candidate is now going to be working for you. What we sometimes need to say is, well, 12, 18 months later, 2 years later, do we still share that same level of excitement about why it is we're working together? And if we've been there 10 years, 20 years, do we still have that same level of excitement about going in and working with that individual? And older people, I think, need to be able to say to themselves, am I excited about this? Why am I excited about it? Why am I not excited about it? What is going to get me excited about working in this organization, going towards retirement? And perhaps even how could I add value into this organization on a part-time basis after I've retired? Because I've got masses and masses of experience that would add value into this organization or a similar one. But if I don't appreciate it, if I don't understand, you know, my experience, my value, how can I expect somebody else to? You know, if you
Yeah.
have been in the same organization for a long time, when was the last time you reviewed your CV? We call them CVs. Over this side, we use the French curriculum vitae, but
Hmm.
over in America, you use resume, I believe, more often. So when was the last time we reviewed that? When, you know, can you define the value that you've added to an organization over the last 12 months, last 5 years? Where have you added value? Why are they keeping you in employment? And then if you understand that, you can promote that more to a line manager, have more of a conversation about where you might do more of that.
Mm-hmm.
And the ageism is just a number, right? It's the experience that is important. It's where you could bring, I've been in this organization, I understand things, I know things, I can share that, I can develop these other people. I I
Yeah.
don't see any reason for someone to be able to turn around and go, well, I was let go because of my age, right? Let's think about it, mate. Think about it. Why were you really let go? And it's because you used your age as a barrier to adding value, to being a contributor, and it's an easy label to cling on to, but it's really that your age is experience, and experience is of value, but you didn't use your experience, you didn't add value, and no manager wants to lose the experience. I've worked with managers who've said, no, that person, we want to bring in some young blood. This is a long time ago now. We want to bring in some young blood, and they've regretted it within 6 months.
Mm.
You cannot make up for experience. The experience of age is not compensated for by the energy of youth.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. So let's move to you, Michael, which is the reason we have you today is, with all your incredible experience and thinking toward retirement, which I know is not on the horizon, but decades out. But I'm going to keep you in your founder role for quite some time. But how do
Oh,
you see, with all your experience in HR and how HR is moving and really reshaping the landscape toward a very powerful contributor to a company versus sort of a line item, if you will, not really having a lot of power, but many of the chief HR officers we know who are extraordinary can ultimately become CEO. I mean, those are really high
yes.
achieving individuals such as yourself. And how is that growth process perhaps or is continuing to change how you're thinking about retirement? And what is that change in difference? And perhaps in 2023, you may have thought of, well, I'd like to envision and define this, but how is that changing into 2024 these days for you,
Okay.
just specifically?
Okay. Well, let me just explain something about the role, how I perceive my role as a senior HR person. If I became, as a chief executive managing director of Abeceder, I have power. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And as somebody with an HR background, I don't have an HR person working. I am the HR person.
Right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm a chief executive of another organization and I have an HR person, then that HR person has very little power. What we have is influence, but
Mm-hmm.
we don't make the decisions for line managers at any level. If we do that, we might as well be the line manager. What we do is provide the expertise in HR, the expertise to say, well, you have these two different decisions. Well, we believe this one is legal, this one is not, so we don't do that. This is the decision you have to make. Both these decisions are feasible, but we believe the consequences of this, the impact of this decision will not be as good as how that one is likely to be played out. We are a sounding board. We are an influencer. It's a bit like the the Disney film Dumbo, where the troop of elephants are all controlled by the mahout, who is the mouse, and the mouse is very small. The mouse gets in the wrong way, in the wrong place at any time, or annoys the elephants. They can stamp on him and kill him outright. Right? As an HR person, you are like that little mouse. Right? You have to present the information, the guidance to people in a way that enables them to do their jobs better rather than trying to do their jobs for them. If you try to do people's jobs for them, you alienate them and you end up with a conflict type situation. So that's my perception of my role as an HR person. In terms of retirement, when I was at school and studying British history, one of the periods of British history that we studied was the period when things like sick pay, statutory sick pay from the government, and state
Oh,
pensions were introduced. Now, that's not that long ago.
yeah.
In terms of the United Kingdom, we've only really had pensions for about a century.
Mhm.
Before that, people didn't retire. They were brought in to take people out of the workforce so that they didn't die at work. So you could then bring other people into the workforce, right? So it's an encouragement to get people out of work into retirement. And retirement didn't last very long because life expectancy wasn't very long.
Mhm.
So now life expectancy is a lot longer. We still have an expectation that sort of like 60, 65 is probably the right type of age to retire. But I don't think many people who are 60 to 65 feel ready to retire in the way that their parents or grandparents will have retired. I stop
Mhm.
work, I collect the watch, the clock, whatever it is, and my life is my own. I can do whatever I like.
Mhm.
An awful lot of people don't see retirement in that way anymore. And financially, for a lot of people, it isn't possible just to rely upon a pension payment from the state or your corporate pensions or your private pensions either. All of us are in some way going to have some type of work activity that covers the things like holidays and bills and all sorts of things. I have friends who have retired and they've gone from quite senior management positions to working in supermarkets. They stack the shelves. They go in at a certain time, they stack the shelves, they go home. And they've said, it's the greatest job in the world. I have no responsibilities, but I have loads of fun. I have loads of fun with the people that I work with the customers. I get involved in so many different things, right? And retirement is about fun, if nothing else, isn't it?
Mhm.
It's about you've
It is.
worked, you've earned, you've worked, you've earned, you've saved. You have to try and stay healthy. But ultimately, retirement is about saying, how do I want to live? How do I want to be enjoying life? How do I want to say, I've done all the growth, I've done all um, the saving, the earning, the career, and now this is the life I want to have. This is what I need in order to finance that life, right? And just enjoy it after that. Yeah, just enjoy it. That's you know, I got a smile on my face now, looking forward to enjoying life.
Oh, that's wonderful that you're starting to think about that. And I think that it's so important to have those thought processes of how you want to enjoy your life and how you want to provide for your life and what is it. What we talk about from a science point of view, that it's so rare to find play again. And that's what you're talking about, fun. It's how you want to live your life going forward, particularly because no one's had time in their career and their busy career to really play ad hoc, if you will. So,
Yes, yeah,
so I love that. So,
yeah. It is simply saying, my time is mine,
mhm.
right? My time is mine. When you are in your 20s, your 30s, you're so career orientated, and it is, the work finances the life. Whereas, more and more people are leaving university thinking, this is the life I want to have. What job do I need to have in order to finance that life? Right? And we may be coming to it a few decades older, but it's the same sort of thing. What life do we want to have? How do we finance that life? What is it that we do? Before we started recording, I was telling you about some of the volunteering that I'm doing in my community, how we're trying to improve road safety. No one's paying me for that, but I love doing it, right? I love doing it. I'm seeing a whole different range of things and learning so much. We met because you were a guest on my podcast, a great podcast that we produced, and now, returning the favor. I'll be doing more of those. I write, I create content. I'll be doing more of that. I'll be helping perhaps charities out with their HR issues, all sorts of different things. But I'm also finding myself I'm also finding myself looking at cruise catalogs, for the holidays and, the different places in the world that I'd like to go and see. And like, I traveled an awful lot in work, but it was always airport, taxi, hotel, office
Conference room
again.
to conference room.
Yeah,
Yes, I
yeah.
know. Yes.
So now it's like, well, do what you want to do, do it at your pace, in your way, is take control. Nobody else has to tell you what to do, but live the life. I'm going to be very selfish, and I'm going to work out what I want to do and then what I need to earn in order to make sure that I'm doing what I want to do.
Yes, that's wonderful closing remarks, is to be really clear about what you want to do and make sure that you have the capacity to do what it
Yeah,
is you want to do. So,
yes.
Michael, how can this audience that you've enchanted these past hour-ish find you in the world? How do we contact you if we'd like to work
Okay.
with you?
All right. Well, there are various different websites, but there is a michaelmillward.co.uk website. There is the Abeceder website, which is abeceder.co.uk. We have a learning resources web shop called workplaceLearningCentre.co.uk. And yeah, that's probably enough. You'll find me on LinkedIn. You'll find me on Twitter. We're looking at using Instagram and getting into all the social media and just sharing and learning, sharing what we know, learning from what other people know. But yeah, there's all sorts of places that people can find me. I'd be really interested in finding out about people's experiences and people who are retired and are doing things that are of interest to them and how they've created. I think it's called the second age, isn't it? Our
Second
retirement
chapter.
second
Second chapter.
chapter.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's one of them. There's many
yeah,
different, because no one
yeah.
likes the word retirement, so they're trying to come up with other names for that. Yeah.
Oh,
But
I
thank
think I'm going to enjoy retirement very much. I'm going to enjoy it a lot.
you. Great. Well, thank you so much, Michael, for sharing with us today. And I feel it's so privileged to speak to you from across the pond. I love technology, so we made it happen. And
Yes.
thank you for being such an extraordinary
Well,
guest, and much success to you and your team in 2024.
thank you very much. The privilege has been all mine, Nancy. I've really enjoyed it. I was a bit dubious about doing the video things, but you're a great host. So you've lulled me into a sense of security. I probably said all sorts of things I shouldn't. So we'll be hearing from the attorneys soon. But I've really enjoyed it. Thank you very much. You've been a great host, and I really appreciate the opportunity as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Michael.